Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Rethink Your Storage Refresh, How Tribal Nation Gained IT Agility with Pure FlashArray and Evergreen Storage. This event is brought to you in partnership with Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us on this special event. Every IT organization out there is faced to periodically refresh their storage. So if you're not currently undergoing a project to update your storage infrastructure, it's very likely that you soon will be. And that's why I believe this event and the real customer case study that we'll be sharing is so important and so timely for everyone attending today's event. Now, before we get started, just a little bit of information that you need to know about today's webinar. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. We want this to be an educational event, so we encourage you to use the questions box on the left-hand side of your audience console, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session with today's expert presenter at the end of the webinar. We also have a number of resources available in the Handouts tab, so I encourage you to check those out. And finally, we'll be announcing the winner of today's Amazon $300 gift card prize. If you're watching this on demand, I'm sorry, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the Handouts tab. And without further delay, I'm excited to introduce you to today's expert presenters. They are Mr. Kevin Rickson, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Pure Storage, and our special guest, that is Mr. Christopher Abel, Director of IT at the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. Thank you so much, Kevin and Christopher, for being on the event today. With that, I will hand it over to Kevin. Kevin, take it away.
Thanks very much, and we're very glad you're all here. My name is Kevin Rickson, and today we're going to be focusing on Rethink Your Refresh and how you can manage your storage better and get out of the cycles of refreshes that seem endless and extremely painful. With me today is Christopher Abel. He's the Director of IT at Citizen Potawatomi Nation. And we'll get into a little bit more about Chris and the organization that he's with in just a minute. Chris is going to be able to provide you a real-world user view of what Pure Storage is like, how it's different from the legacy storage providers, and especially all the benefits that he has received in being able to rethink his storage refreshes and just get continuous improvements on his storage. My name is Kevin Rickson. I am in product marketing here at Pure Storage, and you can reach me on Twitter at that account if you would like to reach out to us. So just to set the table, why rethink your refresh? Well, I think most people who have bought storage over the years will recognize that it is an area that could do with a lot of improvement. What most legacy storage vendors have required of customers is to either pay more and more and more once the initial maintenance contract is over with, just for the privilege of keeping aging storage within your data center, and just paying more and more for that all the time, what we call maintenance extortion, or having to rip out everything with a forklift and rebuy it just to get new features, to be able to expand, to be able to get rid of any performance bottlenecks. And that's not exactly the best way of doing things. So what it winds up happening is creating this endless cycle of rebuying and refreshing your storage, which has a lot of hidden costs in addition to the fact that you're just rebuying that storage over and over, which is pretty wasteful on its own. But when you think about that data migration project, having to move all the data from one system to another, you have to buy the new system early, you have to keep that old system on the floor longer than you're actually using it in production, just in case anything goes wrong. Well, all those hidden costs can actually be on top of the purchase price, almost 60% of that original array's cost to buy it, just in those hidden operational charges. So what Pure thought was, that's just untenable. And we founded the company based on the idea of, look, we've already got this model in software where you can just subscribe to a software service, and it is always modern, and it is always available to you. We just looked at storage and thought, how about if we did things a little bit differently? Deploying it once, upgrading in place with no downtime, getting full performance that's nonstop, and a modular architecture that allows you to grow it, to improve on it, and even to modernize it, not only without having to rebuy it, but also without having to take it offline. And that way, investments are protected, and that cycle of maintenance, extortion, or constant rebuys basically goes away. That's what we mean when we talk about rethink your refresh, letting you know that there is a different way of consuming your storage and getting something that not only solves your storage problems, but also those headaches around those refreshes. So I now want to introduce Christopher Abel. He is the Director of IT at Citizen Potawatomi Nation. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for making time to join us here today. So tell us a little bit about Citizen Potawatomi Nation, where it is, how many people, and what its mission is.
Well, Citizen Potawatomi Nation is a Native American tribe in Shawnee, Oklahoma. We are the actual largest employer in Potawatomi County, where Shawnee is. We have quite a few enterprises and government programs that I, as the Director of IT, help support. So just to throw some of those out there, we have multiple grocery stores in the area, one in Shawnee, one in Tecumseh, one in McLeod. The two outside of Shawnee, the one in Tecumseh and McLeod, both are the only grocery stores in those areas. So they serve all those people there that would normally have to come into Shawnee to get groceries. Continuing on with enterprises, we have 2 casinos, we have travel plazas, gas stations, screen printing shop, a bowling alley, a arena local to the area that is large enough to handle, well, it handles Tecumseh and Shawnee's graduations now. It handles many other sorts of events. And on top of those, of course, and the primary thing the tribe handles is trying to support the tribal members across the nation, across the world. So governmental support things are things like our tribal roles office, which of course is where all of our tribal member data is housed. Indian child welfare, WIC, tag agencies. We, provide tags for our tribal members. Cultural heritage centers where we have a museum, so on and so on. So we have a very large base of things we handle.
Yeah, very, very wide ranging, it sounds like. And as you can see on screen, there's over 33,000 citizens. And it's a large enterprise that you have. You mentioned some of the different enterprises that help get the revenue in, as well as provide the services. So, I mean, that's fascinating to me. I mean, I'm so used to only dealing with organizations when we have talks like this that are just your classic, business. And I love that this is something that's very service oriented. And you have a great story as well, because you don't just work there; you're actually a member of the tribe, correct?
I am. So I am a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. I am lucky enough to look at it and say I've had family who have spent many, many years working for the tribe, for its tribal members. My grandmother was a director of the tribe. She was instrumental in providing healthcare services to tribal members across her time in the tribe. She was a local nurse and came to the tribe to help actually build up that healthcare department programs. She was something that is interesting. Before she passed away, she was the longest tenured employee of the tribe.
Wow.
And that was well over 30 years, I believe, at the time. So it gives me a sense of something more than just working for my company. I'm not only working for my company, I'm working for my tribe, I'm working for my tribal members, and for that history that has kind of been given to me to follow up.
Well, that's great. And that's, you touched on it. I would think that that would give you a lot of pride, and it's great. Anytime we can combine our work life and our personal passions, what's the saying? We never feel like we're actually going to work. So that's great. Well, let's dive into some of the nitty-gritty details then. So tell us a little bit about the IT infrastructure that you have at the Potawatomi Nation, and what the challenges are that you have faced, how you provide services through IT, and basically what does it look like there? I mean, you touched on a little bit that supporting those enterprises, supporting the databases and of your tribal roles and things along those lines. What other things jump out?
Well, we handle IT all the way across the board. So from directory services, storage, server systems, the IT department overall has their connections with the casino IT departments, the clinic IT departments. I have the pride to say that we have a hand in all of those, whether we are specifically the one supporting that portion of the organization or not. All the directory services come from the main IT department. Policies, all of that stuff starts at that ground level. So we handle all the infrastructure. We have, from an infrastructure standpoint, we have fiber in the ground all the way across our locations. So we handle our own fiber. We're a do-it-all shop.
Right. Touch on all of it. So then, drilling into storage, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and what led to wanting to bring another storage vendor in to try and tackle some of those issues?
Well, a couple years ago, we started looking at our refresh. We had ThreePart. ThreePart worked great for us as a starting off point into real, true large storage. The ThreePart we got was, for those people who may not have seen a ThreePart, that ThreePart was half a 42 rack large, taking up half that rack on its own. The other half of it was used with the blade chassis for our VM systems. So when we started looking at the refresh, we went, this thing is huge.
Yeah. I was going to say, a full rack, that's about the size of a home fridge, a really large fridge, and you're talking half of that just for the storage, right?
Yes, without a doubt. And not to mention that we had not only one of these, we had a second one of these set up for metro storage clustering with our VMware. Since we have fiber between our two locations, our Grand Casino location, which is about 15 miles away, and our main location, we had two of these set up, so we at least had redundancy.
Right.
But if you're talking about then, you're talking about a rack full of storage within two different locations that we were looking at having to replace. And we had about 115 terabytes usable. We were starting to bump our head up against the top of that, and looking at it going, yeah, we can try to double this and add to what we have, but the cost, the power cost, the space, it's just not really usable any longer.
Right.
So as part of the refresh, we started looking around at some other vendors. We looked at what HP offered. I had some background dealing with our local rep for Pure, who had actually kind of sold us the HP beforehand, and he hit me up and we started looking into the Pure, and I'm okay, well this is definitely nice. It's much smaller, much more compact, and it gets us the space requirements we're looking at.
Right.
So after some evaluation and after finding that Pure had the ability to go ahead and give us the both side active metro storage cluster feel to it with our VMware systems, that's kind of what we ended up going with.
So so a couple things I wanted to drill into. So first, that last thing you said was, basically to cover those two sites. So you had the redundancy. The Pure was definitely going to be able to offer that ability to make sure that they were always in sync and one could take over, and do that without a lot of management, especially for your virtualization, your VMware. And then the other thing I want to drill in on was, so you mentioned ThreePart. You've been there for quite a few years, about over 15 years, I think. So was this your first refresh cycle? Or, had you guys been through a few of these over the years?
Well, I've seen a lot of maturing for Citizen Potawatomi Nation from the IT department over the 15 years I've been there. Within the last 10 years, we've done a huge amount of maturing for storage in general. We had played with some left hand. We had looked at some EMC. We had looked at some other options over that course of time. And this was, with the ThreePart, it was our first big foray into
Got it.
really jumping in with virtual machines and true SAN storage.
Right. As opposed to direct attach or, right, the
exactly
left hand and other things that you'd use. Right. So you'd standardized on ThreePart, but the only way to modernize it was going to be to have to refresh it. So at that point, you might as well look at other vendors, and you looked at Pure, and it met a lot of your needs in terms of it's going to take up a lot less space. It's definitely going to do the jobs that you needed in terms of making sure that there was the good site redundancy and stuff. But talk to us a little bit about what you heard around not having to do refreshes in the future.
Well, the Evergreen program was something that we absolutely specifically were honed in on when we heard about it. We love the idea that everything deals with the controllers in the background. Well, we had a 4-node controller for the ThreePart. Those controllers were never refreshed. It would have been either add-on to it, another set of controllers, or we're looking at adding more space into a location that just didn't have the space for it in the first place. Looking at what Evergreen gave us was really, really, trying to collect my words here, sorry.
Okay.
Was really, really attractive to us because we didn't have to look at that controller refresh as a entire rip and replace,
right.
forklift refresh moving forward. The idea of every 3 years we can look at it and go, okay, hey, we get this new controller. As long as we continue working with the maintenance, we get the new controller. We don't have to worry about it. So we're always staying as close to up to date as we can.
Right.
And that, like I said, that was just an extremely attractive option.
Yeah, and that's the Evergreen Storage Gold subscription that you're describing, which I know you have, and that includes a few different ways of upgrading. There's the free every 3, which you just described, which is the ability to make sure that you stay modern at least at about the same schedule that you might have looked at, with a complete refresh and rebuy, about 3 years or so. And then there's also the anytime upgrade capability of Upgrade Flex, which would allow you to, if you had a unforeseen circumstance where you just had to grow it right away and couldn't wait, for another year or two, whenever the 3-year cycle came up, you'd have that as well. So, and I know you haven't gone through that upgrade yet yourself, but tell us a little bit more about the benefits that you saw immediately after getting the Pure system installed, the Pure FlashArray. Did you see gains in performance? Anything along those lines?
Well, we did. So the ThreePart we had was all 10K drives. So we saw an immediate gain in performance because, of course, we went to an all-flash array. We had more space from the Pure and a smaller amount rack-wise than we did for the ThreePart, but that gain in IOPS was just amazing. We saw a faster response time in our backups. We saw a faster response time in data transfers. We had some issues we have on our accounting system. We'd had some issues where on the virtual machine that it was hosted on the ThreePart, as soon as we switched it over to the Pure, some of the issues that they had, which was slow response times, the spinning wheel of death.
Oh gosh, yeah,
all went away.
That's always so happy for an IT person to hear back from users that why is it doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. So immediately all those went away.
That's great. Yeah, in terms of quantity, like was the response, you mentioned the backup times and things, did they, go down by 10%, by 50%? Was it a big jump? I mean, it was noticeable, it sounds like, right?
We saw a jump. I don't know that I have a percentage that I can really give a good percentage on, because as we got through with the storage upgrade, we started doing some changes on backup systems, and it's been a while since we did that, so I don't specifically remember a percentage, honestly.
No worries. If you noticed it, then that's all that matters. So that's great. Now, you also mentioned, obviously, that there's the flexibility in terms of upgrading. Talk a little bit about the management, because I think you were seeing some issues with the ThreePart as well, as far as how much time it would take and attention from the folks on your very lean IT staff. Did you see improvements there with the Pure system?
Without a doubt. So with ThreePart, we had at the time really two storage server/storage team members who were handling all of the provisioning and VM creation for everything. I think we have something along the lines of 150 VMs now. We were about 100 then. So anybody who's worked with ThreePart, it's an odd process, because unlike Pure, which has a connection to VMware and you can do everything through VMware,
right.
Go ahead and provision all the storage, create the VM, it's all right there. ThreePart didn't have that. You had to go set up the stuff in ThreePart, then you had to really hope that it showed up the right way.
Right.
And then go ahead and
setting up two screens and comparing them. Are they matching? Are they right?
Right. So, and then had to go in and of course create the VM with the storage that you just provisioned. So the manageability of ThreePart and what it gave us was just, it took the amount of time that it took to actually create all these things was so much less time.
Well, you mentioned you had two dedicated folks. Do you have dedicated folks for the Pure storage now?
Well, so like I said, we're kind of an all-encompassing shop. So we have 3 server flash storage guys, but really what it comes down to now is usually it may be one who handles that now, instead of the possibility of 2 or 3 handling, trying to actually get these servers set up from multiple perspectives. And of course, the training time has gone down, because it's a lot easier to right click on something and go, here it is, then, okay, well, you've got to get into ThreePart, and then you have to get in here, and then you have to get in here, and step by step by step. So
yeah, I would assume you'd see a benefit when, instead of a 500 or 1,000 page installation and management manual with a legacy provider, you have our installation tent card that's the size of of 2 business cards taped together. So yeah, and it sounds like you had at least a in terms of people who have to monitor the storage, it's gone down by at least half, and fewer of those all hands on decks kind of crises, at least attributed to storage, correct?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we have the amount of things that we have to work on. We have a whole lot more time to work on other things rather than having to worry about storage specifically. So
that's great, and that is something we hear from a lot of our customers, that it just runs, and I don't need to worry about the storage. And tell us a little bit about what it's like working with our support, because I would assume there are issues that come up. What is your experience working with the support organization?
So everything I've been told from, I haven't specifically worked with support myself, but I have been involved with making sure that the team who has handled that is getting, good support back and forth, because of course we care about this. They have said nothing but good things about getting a hold of support. The support portal is easy. The response time is extremely quick. If there's something that we have to have as it is a complete we are down situation, it's nearly instantaneous. And most of that, we get the alerts beforehand, and if we really have a problem, the support's there.
So that's the proactive support, you're referring to there. Right, where basically our systems at Pure are monitoring your array and performance, and using things like AI and fingerprinting, so that if we recognize an issue that's cropped up for another customer with a similar array, we'll let you know, hey, you may need to change the setting, or you may need to apply this patch ahead of time before it becomes an emergency for you. That's great.
And I will say, on top of the normal support, something that I care about quite a bit is the relationships we build with the sales engineers, the sales reps, and our sales engineer has been just as proactive as our support has. They've hit us up and said, hey, this update is coming right around the same time that support would. Here you go. So we really like the fact that relationship is there. Something about Pure support and Pure sales seems that they really do care.
Well, and thank you for pointing that out, because I know that's something else that we hear a lot from our customers, is it does feel holistic. You're not feeling like, okay, now I'm dealing with support, now I'm dealing with my rep who's just trying to get more money out of me. that there is a true relationship that's able to be built, and we're helping you be successful, because in the end that's what makes us successful. And that really gets back to a lot of the founding principles at Pure. We wanted to make storage in general, not just from a technical perspective, but from the ownership, management, upkeep, and upgrade, to have it all feel much simpler and much more like, hey, you're a partner with us, rather than just a number on a spreadsheet, which is never fun. So, hey, you mentioned that the Evergreen storage program and the hardware upgrades were something that you really like about Pure, and it was a deciding factor, and you haven't gone through that yet, but I know you have gone through some software upgrades. And by the way, all Pure storage is sold with all software, including that active cluster and metro cluster style support that you talked about. Those are all included within your subscription. So what have those software upgrades been like? Did you have any downtime? Were they pretty easy, and did you see real benefits afterwards?
So the downtime question is, we've had no downtime. Every software upgrade we've done has had no effect on us whatsoever from a detrimental aspect. As far as have we seen a immediate response or an immediate improvement, the nice thing about Pure is, like you said earlier, it just runs. So it runs well enough for us that we may not have seen an improvement. I do know that the Pure dashboard that the name kind of escapes me
Pure
right
One?
now. Yes, Pure One.
Yeah.
We get in there and we take a look every now and then, of course, and we see things are running great. Do we really go in and do we feel like we need to go in and check Pure One or check how responsive things are after every upgrade because of the way that the upgrades work? We really don't.
That's great. That's fantastic. I know that must give you a lot of peace of mind, and that's not always something that people have around storage. So that's great. Well, so in conclusion, what's your takeaway? Is there anything that we missed? Anything else that you want to make sure that other potential Pure users out there, anyone that's considering storage, considering rethinking their refresh, other things you want to make sure that they know?
Well, I think the only other thing that I would mention is, along with the FlashArray, which has been absolutely amazing, we jumped in on the ES2 Flash Blade option.
Yeah, or Pure as a service. Yep.
Pure as a service. That's right. We have, like I said earlier, we have a museum, and I don't know how many people listening might have dealt with museum work, but storage where it comes to museum and archival data, one day you may be great, the next day they're saying we need 30 extra terabytes. Well,
right.
That 30 extra terabytes you may not have right there. Well, then the nice thing about that ES2 option, especially for a tribe that we prefer to keep our data on site as best as possible, rather than looking at something like Amazon Cloud or one of those types of services. We had that ES2 Pure as a service option, that if we need that extra space, which we have actually purchased extra space for our flash blades, all we have to do is just go ahead and say, okay, we need this much for this many terabytes, and either it's already there or they ship us another blade, we install it, and we're good.
Yeah, so basically that's Pure's storage as a service offering, Pure as a service, which allows you to consume the amount that you need, the amount of storage, rather than having to buy it, which is what you did with FlashArray. You did a traditional purchase, and then the Evergreen program has just helped make that better from an ownership perspective. But right, when you looked at FlashBlade, you looked at it from a, how about if we don't buy it, we just sign up for the amount of storage that we actually need. And then I love what you said about, you know, something like a museum where suddenly that can fluctuate over time. It can increase. Maybe it's just for a temporary exhibit. It might need to decrease later on. So you're only paying for what you need. And that way, you know, you've got options. And that is really one of the things that we try to do at Pure. We changed the ownership and the traditional way of buying storage with Evergreen, and we changed it yet again with Pure as a service. We launched it as ES2, so thank you for letting us know that was, you're one of our first customers, it sounds like, which is great, you know, and that also has value for you as well, whether you want to buy, whether you want to consume it more like how people consume the web by just paying for what you use. Pure gives you that choice. Great thing to touch on. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate all this perspective. I want to wrap up just by summing up what we were hearing about how Pure has changed the environment within storage. Again, Evergreen is, and Pure as a service, they would not exist if we did not have the modularity, that upgradeability, that ease of use, all built within the product itself. And then when you're purchasing your hardware, then you would add the Evergreen subscription, which delivers all the things that Chris was just talking about into what we call Evergreen storage. And those things that are baked into the architecture are things like the hardware that is very easily upgradable just by swapping out controllers. Chris is going to be doing that very shortly. And that was part of the reason why he wanted to go with Pure, because he knew he didn't have to rebuy everything. The Flash itself is really upgradable. Chris has already gone through the Purity, the software upgrade. Never had any downtime with any of these different things, and it all can be upgraded online. What the Evergreen storage program does is basically cover the entire life cycle of your storage ownership, from when you're acquiring it with things like a 30-day money-back guarantee. All the software that runs on the array is always included, and we can even guarantee the excuse me, the capacity that you need, so you know you're not underbuying or overbuying the amount of flash storage that you need. We have something called flat and fair maintenance, which means that's what gets rid of that whole idea of maintenance extortion. Your maintenance rates aren't going to go up, you know, and that way you know what the rates are going to be over time. We talked about the support and how good that is, and you know that Chris's team has had very good interactions with it, and it even does proactive level support. And then on the upgrade side, that Evergreen Gold subscription makes sure that you, at a minimum, are able to upgrade your controllers every 3 years using free every 3. You can do them anytime you need, especially when you have unforeseen changes. You know, Chris was using the example of using our Pure as a service to increase his capacity. That same situation, if he owned the array, might have, and it was a flash array in that case, Upgrade Flex would have been a perfect thing for that. What this does is not only eliminates that madness of having to rebuy your storage all the time, but there's real economic savings that Evergreen delivers to you by rethinking your refresh and not having to do the traditional refresh. In year 4, you're basically with Pure, that's these orange bars here, just renewing your Evergreen subscription and then getting that controller upgrade at that same time, versus the gray bar, the legacy vendor, you have to rebuy everything. And that's the only way that you can increase your performance, get it modern, etc. And when you add all this stuff together, not just not having to rebuy, but all those soft costs, and also the things that Chris was talking about in terms of Pure is much denser storage. We have much better data reduction capabilities. You know, he was able to go from half a rack down to, well, I can't do the math in my head, but I think we're normally only around 5 or 6 rack units. So what is that, 1/7 of a rack? So yeah, you get lots of great space savings and power and cooling savings as well. And that can contribute to up to 60% savings versus legacy storage vendors. The other thing to keep in mind is we didn't just come up with this yesterday. As I said, the entire company was founded on this idea of changing storage. All on the bottom half of this timeline, you can see all the different product generations that we've had around FlashArray. We've had 8 different controller versions, 8 different hardware platforms, 4 major generational changes. We have customers who have been with us from the beginning for the last 7-8 years, have never had any downtime, and have been able to upgrade through all of these product changes so that they can stay current. And then on the top half, you'll see everything that we've done around the ownership experience, the Evergreen storage program, starting all the way back in 2014 when we first came up with the idea of the included controller refreshes, launching the actual name Evergreen Storage and adding more to it. And we basically added more and more every single year that we've been in business. And you compare that to that little blue bubble there around 2017, which is when some of the legacy vendors finally started adding some of the things that at least looked and sounded somewhat like Evergreen. But when you don't have a modular architecture that was designed from the ground up to always be upgradable, it's really hard to make a marketing program act like what Chris was describing, where it just works, you're always going to be able to keep it modern. And as proof of that, we've actually, just through the Evergreen storage program, upgraded over 3,200 controllers. So that's 3,000 plus arrays that, rather than needing to be rebought, just had swapped out controllers under this Evergreen storage program, and we've kept those modern over time. Chris also touched on our Pure as a Service, which is another way of looking at this. Again, it's the exact same architecture all the way through, but instead of purchasing it, you can just sign up for a contract for the amount of storage that you need. And that amount can go up and down over time, kind of like, you know, your utility meter. And the idea is that you just pay for what you use in any given time period. And then that helps you rethink not only the idea of refreshing, but how you consume storage and how you spend it. It's the exact same products, the exact same benefits that Chris has been talking about, and it just gives you another way of taking a look at it. And as you heard from Chris's story, you know, he's a user of both, buying our storage and using the Evergreen program, or using Pure as a Service and just paying for what you need. So in short, Evergreen is your subscription to innovation. You just buy it once and then you stay modern over time. And that allows you to stay agile, to make sure that you can respond to changes, be modern, and it's all included in one subscription model. I want to thank you all for your time here today, and I think we're going to switch it over to do some questions and answers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation, Kevin and Chris. Really appreciate you, Chris, especially sharing your personal experience with Pure Storage. We do have some questions from the audience. We've been answering most of them electronically, but a couple of questions I want to at least cover before we wrap up. And the first one here is for Chris. They're asking, have you experienced any downtime when you've done expansions or upgrades?
So, like I said during the conversation, we haven't had any actual downtimes during expansions, or, well, we haven't done specifically expansions on the FlashArray. The FlashBlade expansion we did, like I mentioned earlier, we got a new blade in, we put it in, and it worked. As far as it goes with the upgrades, software upgrades, we haven't had any downtime, any issues with them whatsoever.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great to hear. Great to hear. All right, let's see. Next question is for you, Chris. They're asking, what if I don't want to buy new storage? Is there a as a service offering? I think you were talking about that already, but you want to expand a little bit?
I think that was for me, for Kevin. And yeah, that must have been put in right before those last few slides. But yes, that's Chris was mentioning that as the Pure as a Service, and we did have that. We do have that availability as well. So it's basically a pay-as-you-go. It is set up where, you know, there are some minimums, but they're pretty small. And you basically just pick that, you know, the more that you add to a reserve, the lower the you know, per gigabyte charge is. So it's very similar to what you'd see in cloud pricing. If you've ever, you know, set up a contract with Amazon Web Services, etc., the difference is this is a lot more affordable, and it is something that's on your premises. So it takes the economics of the cloud and applies them to your on-premise capabilities. And then we also do have something that runs in the cloud called Cloud Block Store on currently Amazon, and soon coming with the other major public cloud vendors, which is the exact same software that Chris has running on his FlashArray up in the cloud. And that way it's a single subscription, so you can actually decide if you want to have the data up in the cloud or on premises or move it back and forth.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it looks like we're running out of time, but final question I wanted to ask you, Kevin, and that is, if people are on this call and they have storage that needs refreshing, most companies do out there, how should people get started learning more about Pure?
I think the best is to go to our website, purestorage.com, and there is a Rethink Your Refresh page there where you'll find all sorts of resources that will help you discover ways of looking at the current storage experience you may have now and how things can change, and especially a lot more stories like what Chris was able to provide of satisfied Pure customers who've been able to rethink their own refresh.
Awesome. Well, it's been really great having you on. Thank you so much for your presentation, Chris and Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, it's time for our prize announcement. We have our Amazon $300 gift card that's going out to David Ribberty from South Carolina. Congratulations, David Ribberty from South Carolina. We'll reach out to you to deliver that prize. Before you go, I want to remind everyone to check out the handouts tab there. We have an independent analyst paper there on the Pure Storage Evergreen storage solution. And that's from IDC. It's an analyst report. You can download that now and check it out after the event. Don't forget to get that before you go. Thank you, everyone who joined this webinar today. We do appreciate your participation and your time. I hope that you learned a lot and had a good time. I know that I did. I really appreciate Chris's story from the Potawatomi Tribal Nation and how they used Pure FlashArray and the Evergreen storage solution. And of course, thank you to Pure Storage for supporting today's event. For more information, visit purestorage.com. I'll see everyone next time. Have a great day.